My name is Sarah Elgatian. I'm excited to talk with you today about research in creative writing. It's a topic near and dear to me. So let's go over today's. As usual, I'll do a little lesson, give you some resources, and then I will. Obviously, the whole time I'm open to the end. I'll tell you what's up in the world of the Midwest Writing Center, and then we will close out with some free write. So let's get to it. I think that research in creative writing gets glossed over. Secondary because if I'm writing fiction or poetry, then it's about, the story I'm creating or the experience that I'm selling, the experience I've had, the feelings and not something that needs to be researched. And we leave research to the nonfiction writers and or journalists, and that's not a great mentality, but it's one I had for a very long time until I started writing nonfiction, which is sort of ridiculous because even my fiction is not super fictitious. Hate admitting that. Now you know my dirty secret. You read my stuff, it probably came out of my head. I know, shocking. Yeah. And although I will say, learning to become an essay writer has made me a better writer in all regards, and I always say this, but coming from the love of poetry, better prose writer, but learning to write nonfiction, better fiction and poetry writer. So I really want to talk about how research has changed me as a writer and how I think it can change you as a writer. It's super easy how research works in essays, because so often the short essay, the creative essay, the personal has this beautiful twist where it starts out with something personal and breaks out into a universal, and it's a public, maybe not universal, but big topic that has required a lot of research, and they're braided together artfully in the really research. Some examples I will give. Eula Biss, the essay collection of hers I've read, I don't know if she has more than one, is Notes on No Man's Land, or Notes from No Man's Land. In it, she is like musing on telephone poles, and then it say about lynchings. And she does that beautifully. Like, you don't see it coming. It's actually, this is maybe a terrible analogy for me to make, but I think of essays a lot like episodes of The Simpsons, where I noticed as a kid, and sorry, Mom and Dad, they didn't like me to watch The Simpsons as a kid, that whatever's happening in the beginning of the episode has nothing to do with the rest of the episode. And it's not like because it's a cold open, it's just the first thing that happens leads into this totally different plot. And that's not quite how essays work. And the middle and the end in this really beautiful way, so that you can see how the personal and the big picture are one and the same, or intertwined in such a way that they can't be untwined irrevocably. That's the word I was looking for. With MWC favorite Liz Lenz, her book Godland starts out feeling very much like an essay, like a personal essay, and Liz is an essayist, so this makes sense. Where she's just talking about her church and moving into the 2016 election. And she does this very seamlessly, where you're learning her story, and then you're learning the story of what she calls Godland, the Midwest, the Heartland, the that has had so much focus on it in elections, and how and why voting went the way that it did in that election, by talking about her own faith, talking about religion, and she does it seamlessly. because of the way the research relates to the personal. It's I'll go with a favorite of mine to pick on, Hanif Abdurraqib. His book, They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us. Every essay is about, every essay is about music. Many of them are about a concert experience. A lot of them are about albums. But then they're really about racism or bereavement or gentrification. It's seamless. He's artful, though, that in one, just because of his language. That's what really good research can do in anything, not just in essays, not just in nonfiction. It will braid together the personal with something bigger, as if there's something bigger than the personal. Makes it easier for the reader to get on board with, and it makes it easier to digest what may in another context feel sterile, right? We're not trying to write textbooks, and in fact I think that there's probably, I don't know this, I don't buy a lot of textbooks, I do buy some, but I think there must be the academic world and the really world, and that's really, I love nonfiction. It's because when someone is a really good nonfiction writer, it feels like you're reading a novel. I write book reviews sometimes, and you'll see me say that a lot. When I read nonfiction, I'll be like, this read like a novel, and that's huge praise. I'm saying that this person knows how to write, which not all novels are great, of course. Something that we use as a, and what you write, if you're a good writer, then you're a good writer. But it's something that research is something that nonfiction uses that fiction uses much less so. I think a lot of the times too, in fiction in particular, we think that research is something that, I have a yawn coming. Research is sort of, I think, reserved for books that are about like historical fiction, one, or books like that are about war, but not by a veteran or not by someone who was alive in that era. And that's not the case. That's not how research works. It's not something that's just for other people, but that is something that we have a weird mentality around. I have on my little outline for myself, but I think that I've done essays, plenty of the research department. The point of that is, of course, research when how to use language can make the personal so much bigger. It can tie so much together. So about fiction and poetry, and when I say that, and when I say prose, I do not mean to cut out any other genres. Of course, I know that comics exist. Of course, I know that plays exist. Of course, I know that hybrid exists. I would actually say research is at least as important to hybrid work as any other genre, but hybrid being what it is, anything. So I never universal, because there are no universal rules, but research. And I'm going to take you through a journey of more of how and why. I would classify as a lyric essay. Really, it was sort of a a letter, and a lot of what I write, which you probably know if you've watched me before. It's my baby. Is as a, why I say, because then I don't have to say this genre this is. So I was writing something for a local Quad City publication, and I wanted to write something that to the Quad Cities. And that was hard for me as someone who, grew up here and then ran away at 17, 18, being like, I'll never come back, as teens do. And I had, a bad taste in my mouth from, being a teenager and just being a teenager, being miserable. And I really wanted to be reverent. I really wanted to give love to this place that shaped me. And I wrote, I guess, the skeleton for the piece. It's changed dramatically since then. And I was like, and what I wrote was kind of a love letter to, kind of a Dear John, kind of a love letter. Someone I was interested in at like 14. And I was like, the most interesting part of this has nothing to do with this love story. About me. And I don't know if other people have this experience. I don't know if this is even true. I only write I don't do very well. And then I kind of turned it into, because the most interesting part of it then was about what I learned on these drives I used to take with my dad when I would have a really bad night. Be like, I'm good. And it's like, and, and your kid, they're 14. So if it happened a lot, like it's been a long time. Them super clearly, but that turned out to be the most was talking about these drives. So what I ended up doing, this is the research part, this is where I think the magic really happened. And I feel like I can speak to this. This was only a few years ago, but it really changed the way I write fiction and non. Moving forward, poetry, I'm doing a lot now to write poetry. I'm still super insecure about it, but I love poetry so much. Anyway, what I ended up doing then, talking about these drives, is I pulled up a map of the Quad Cities, and I mapped out the route, which I got this from taking Liz Lenz's essay course at the David R. Collins Writers Conference. I took it twice before it sunk in for me. I wanted to follow every rabbit hole. That was a goal that I had based on her research. Follow, because you don't know where it's going to take you. You're going to research, you don't know what you don't know. And that turned out to be amazing, following these rabbit holes. The map, I ended up for 10 years, remember everything. Go figure. Local businesses to be like, hey, what's across the street from you? The ideal thing that you would do is actually go visit. I was living in either Iowa City or Seattle at the time. But I was like, okay, and then you turn here. I was working out on the map, thinking, what's on this corner? I think it's Gunchies. It was Gunchies. And so we would also, on these drives, listen to music. I discovered, this is just so much information away. I learned about bar/band that existed in the 70s. Than that, I wasn't there. Called the, and nobody talked to me about it, but there was this, and well, I'm sure that my dad talked to me about it. I don't want to discredit you, Dad. Hi. He's not watching. It's fine. And I ended up researching this bar where this band played. And it's long closed down. I think it's like I don't, because like I said, it's closed. I think it's where the family restaurant is, Kimberly. And they had people at this bar, but they were having a reunion coming up. And I managed to make it to the reunion, bar's regulars reunion. I contacted the person. I didn't just, uh, but and then they like showed me all their photo albums from the time, and they told me stories about the bar. And that was fantastic, super weird, because no one knew my parents. I was just like, well, I was that kind of involved your closing night where you played this band. Can you tell me about your bar? And then they invited me, and so that's 2 rabbit holes that I fell down with research, writing this one essay letter thing. There are more actually with just this one, but from the research I did, experimenting with doing research with following, I got 3 distinct essays out of that, and ones I'm really proud of, and experiences that, while I'm laughing a lot talking about them, they were really cool experiences. And something that's important too, that I think patient, so I think that this must happen to more people than just me, is I expect the experience to pay off right away. So those immediately. But now I have 3 essay. They came and went and followed in the insane and unexpected, and I was just doing it to be like, okay, I'm gonna take the advice that totally worth it. And I have this mentality. It's more like well, I said this when I was talking to projected future regret is what I base a lot of decisions based on, make a lot of decisions based on. And in that an experience can be had, a lot of the times I'm like, well, am I going to remember this? Am I going to stuff like that? The answer is usually like, yes. And it's obviously a lot harder. Don't do a lot of opportunities of things that we can check in on through the internet, which is cool. It's very cool. Not the same at all. I'm not going to a reading and making friends and making random conversation, or buying merch, or like seeing. There are also lots more opportunities to get in touch with real people because everyone is slowed down. So making those little interviews, those little connections through the internet is not so hard, because we're all just sitting at home. Highly recommend reaching out to real people. And you can just do it. You don't have to be I'm so sorry for using that word, but you don't have to be so prepared that, you're tense about it. You can just be like, hey, I know that you run this organization. I'm interested in learning about Buchanan County. Is Buchanan a county? I'm sorry. I don't know. And just be like, hey, tell me about your job. And then and you'll learn something. And maybe the thing you're reading about is just a short story, a short essay about the day you adopted your dog, but you're going to learn something about what was your dog experiencing before that day, or how much impact did you have by adopting your dog. And that, I feel like it seems like it's not going to do much. So much. A bit of research does so much to enrich the piece. It does so much, and this counts for poetry too. Which, as you're writing, it doesn't maybe feel that way at the time. It doesn't maybe feel that way to you because you can't be separate from your piece. But it feels makes you more of an expert. Doing those little things where you're just reaching out to another human. You don't have to necessarily go down a Wikipedia rabbit hole. Also do more media. You already know that like something on this page you're looking at isn't. And I say this too when I give a sentence. It's the little details that will set it apart. And you don't know what details you're missing until you know. And so by doing the research, you get the details, you get extra insight that you wouldn't know you're missing otherwise. And right about having never given research my time or attention prior to that time, I'd decided to experiment in research, and now I swear by it because it does so much unexpected heavy lifting. I don't know if I gave Liz Lenz credit for that. I think she phrased it that way, but that's something that I got from her. If you start doing research and it leads you into new questions or opens new doors, just keep following it. That's how I ended up at that. And it's also how I led into these new topics about in the late 70s. But it's relevant. I really enjoy the 1978 sitcom Taxi, and there's an episode of Taxi in which there's one woman, the main character, Mr. Men drivers. That's background info. So they all hang out at this bar after work. Guy, some rando at the bar, is talking to a character played by Tony Danza, who's also named Tony. And Tony decides he's going to set up this guy at the bar with his friend, the woman, Elaine. And at the middle end of the episode, we find out that the guy asked out Tony. And not because, but because he doesn't like Elaine. And so this got me into this question about, like, if this episode existed in and the rest of the with in the 90s talked so much, used so many gay like friends, had lots and lots of jokes based around this. I really like, where did it happen if this show like, oh no, gay, what was the change in the media? How did that work? And that is another essay. If you don't have free time and you just are trying to keep up a writing practice, dope. Like, do that. Don't let this scare the publisher for thinking that it's or what you're trying to do is right. However, if you have time, it will always, always, always benefit you to do the research. Just a little bit of research. If you're watching this, then you have the internet. Libraries are still working. I mean, I don't think you can go into many right now in person, but the library is to help in research. Yeah. The writing center is here for you. We also have lots of there are to do the research, and it might be as simple as talking to your cousin or whatever. I don't know what the topics are that you're passionate about. Help you out with those. That is really exciting. I think about. I know I use the word exciting a lot. I really am excited by the little bit to learn. Doing characters are going to be better. They're going to be more three-dimensional for one thing, but also I don't know about you, but when I read a book, writer, annoyed. Because a lot of the times I think writers think that that's the only vocation, and that's not so. Besides the fact that, at least prior to that big first outside writers, but it's cool to research stuff that you've never considered as a trouble. Or Midwest Ratings book is published by a math professor. I experience that I don't. And you could just talk to your old math professor if for some reason you need a math professor character. There are tons of jobs out there that our writers can have. I mean, have too, obviously. And doing any kind of research will enrich your characters too, because those characters may have jobs, but also they're human beings, right? Maybe you write about animals or anthropomorphic, I don't know. But the point is that they are people if they're not human beings. They're three-dimensional. They have characters, and that is shaped by fictitious, presumably, if we're talking about fiction. They still have this depth of character. They still have these experiences. I'm not saying that you have to work world building and character building on paper and know every single answer about your character, but you do need to know your character. And you've done the character. That's just character can be, because you have more knowledge to back up what they know. And you can absolutely, I'm not before you start writing, you can absolutely do it as you write. What questions you have until you have them, until you do research. So it's always helpful, and you don't know when it's going to come in handy, and you don't know what. And maybe you're not as excited about everything as I am, but you will absolutely benefit as a writer by doing research. The more we know and the more that we explore, the more enriched our writing is. And what else do I have? In poetry, that is narrative, and there is poetry that exists that tells a specific story or honors history or honors an experience, and you can absolutely research everything about the of the event or experience that you're depicting. But above all, you build your language. Most important thing, but it's also going to help your metaphor know more about the evolution of these out of aptitude. Then you're going to have a better metaphor about what she's. More power to you. You know about cheese graters. And sometimes those rabbit holes that you go through on can lead somewhere too. For instance, I recently accidentally saw a video about antique kitchen tools, which greater idea, but I don't think there was a cheese grater in the video. It was like a thing that you use fast top to the bottom of the pipe. That was a tool I would have, like, there's tons of stuff out there like that exist. Additionally, I know I've read a poem about someone's grandmother's kitchen, probably of one in particular, by San Green. And in it he and presumably he's been to I don't presume the writer is always the writer. That's knew what this kid, they're not experience. He felt it, though my grandmother is certainly not the same age as a poem. So just knowing the environment, knowing the background of your metaphors, your characters, your settings in poetry makes a huge and beautiful difference for adding. It's also another piece of advice for writer's block is just research. I writer's block a lot. I think that really anything other than staring at the page can help jog us out of writer's block, but you don't have to necessarily want to do the research. Like, you don't have to think, oh, this is necessary to getting me to my next scene or my next line, or but it'll get you out of your head and support for whatever it is that you're working on. Maybe I'm trying to think of a poem I'm really working on. I tried to use a metaphor, and this pen right here, and it started leaking all over my finger. Washing my hands got it off, so you can't see it. I tried, and I was saying, you know, the pen leaks on my fingers, and it will have forgotten. And I'm trying to use this as a metaphor. So what can I do to improve that metaphor? First, the actual situation I'm talking about. How does generational memory I can do? I've done before. My favorite bit of research that I've done is genetics, which genetic memory, trauma experience, getting through. My cats are fighting outside the door. I'm glad I closed it this time. I remembered. Trauma is passed down sometimes through DNA, and that's and it also gave me a ton to work with. You know, use all the research in the world that I could to talk about epigenetics, because I wasn't talking about epigenetics for my piece. Talking about, you know, how human beings by the but now I know about this. I can't remember what I about when I got to epigenetics. Writer's block. I have my notes right here. That's what I keep looking at. Yeah, the changing something up is my advice working on. So, whatever that you maybe don't think you need to research, just do it, and it'll get you out of the spot you're in at the very least. Keep it today. There's just time is wasted if you're researching. I don't do spending too much time on a screen. It's I don't know. I'm universal, but I just don't like reading on a blue screen. So the internet is not a place to. However, the books in the world or people to talk to about stuff. Other ways of doing short bits of research. Of course, you know, use your favorite search engine and go down whatever rabbit hole of links you can. Find your and same, go down the topic of choice. To find, I really want to give a shout out to librarians. I know I talked about this briefly before, but their degrees are in how to locate information. So while you maybe cannot go into the appointment, call your library, send them an email. All of the librarians have, they'll answer you. Many libraries have systems in which the librarian will recommend books to you based on your, and I'm saying this because that shows you that they have the time for their patrons, even if we're not there in person, and they are the most valuable that to us as a community. Our teachers or our firemen, librarians, how to find them thing that they are taught have a library, but I know you do. So get a library again. I am not. I can do it, and it causes a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. So send an email, or maybe your library has a chat. Most libraries have. It's all my first advice because I'm the person who answers our social email at the Midwest Writing Academy, Ryan, our general account. If you're like, hey, do you have it on? Something I said earlier, I don't like that. I don't like saying that. It would be cool if we could all just survive. But you know, maybe your writer friends have different careers from. You know, I've been a barista. I've done programming. I have worked in housing for people without houses, children without. Like, if you're trying to work on something about troubled teens, don't call them troubled teens. Underserved youth. You know, I'm a good resource on that, and your friends are teachers or social workers or cooks. This is all, we are all valuable wells of information. It's not just our elders. There are insights, and that counts. That absolutely counts as research. I can also talk today about how to best use search engines. There's different ways for results. I had to learn how to do that at one point in my life. I think that sounds crazy, but I hope you believe me if you find that crazy. You can get better results with different that is probably everyone's best resource because it's available and it has most of the information if you know how to find it. A place that I go, I don't want to like promote toxic internet places, but I haven't had this experience. I just know it's out there. A place that I always go to do research is Reddit. When you're interested in something niche, forum for it. Subreddit. And you just, I think I talked about this recently on here, but maybe I didn't. Something that I was trying to figure out recently was how, if I checked out a book at the library and I did lots of highlighting and made lots of notes, if I then bought a digital copy of that book, would my notes stay? Now, like, Reddit for that. a friend of mine uses a sub called Skincare Addicts. And there's lots of really, really weird niche stuff you can easily research without having to talk to a human. You can also ask questions. Places out there like that, please let me know. I would love to compile resources for research. I would love that. I'm gonna please hit us up anytime about resources, about other ways of enriching your work. You know, we are here to that's our mission statement here at the Midwest Writing Center. So we absolutely want to live up to that. So let us know comment, concern. I'm not seeing any comments today. I miss you. Come back. People who often leave me comments. I want to know what videos you want to see, what sort of things you need in your teaching, in your journey as, and I want to provide for you, for my community. That's what the Midwest Writing Center is here for. Upcoming events that we have going on include currently taking submissions for the disaster anthology. I say that it doesn't have to be a disaster story. Experience good, bad, trials, triumphs, relations, a ton happens here. Tell us about it. Even if you don't see yourself as a traditional writer, we want to hear it. We believe everyone has a story, whether or not you see yourself as a capital W writer. We also are taking submissions for the chapbook series. That is a chapbook series. We will other forms of writing, hybrid, prose, and I mean, we'll publish more than one book this year. It'll come out in 2021. Book previously, when we've done content per year, this is different. This is to honor Mary Foster and Dick Stahl, and we want to. We also have a holiday open house coming up December. I don't have my calendar with me right now. Which, but we're also sending out care packages so that we all have talk about stuff that we have in common, and have our holiday to that by the 4th, and I will get you a care package, which will include, you know, a big some writing, some MW, and I think that's. You want to be involved in Writer Studio, which is a group/writing community of every month from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Time, and get a hold of us for that URL or join the URL, or join the event page studio. Otherwise, as always, I hope you write more light into your life. I will leave you with the prompt today of hi, new friend, right now. And I'm going to, I don't want to like research, that's not a writing prompt. I'm going to ask you to, in day, make not necessarily a physical map, but take me on a journey that involves a map. I want you to take me from A to B to C. 5 minutes on my timer. And probably in the meantime, I find writing prompts, no matter what, very difficult. So this is always hard for me, and accountable. So we're going to have our writing that involves a map. 5 minutes on the clock. Like I always say, it's okay if you end up just journaling. That's what I usually end up, just because it's hard, but at okay if like that was totally out of left field for you. I'm just realizing now that I've had a lot of that I've written, just where I'll talk about a very specific distance, or like in the one I talked about earlier. You know, we drove down this road and then turned on this road to be a hyper local, hyper specific Quad Cities piece. But obviously, you know, you read fantasy books and they have maps in the front of them. Could also be whatever for you. I'm remembering now, folding a map in teleporting. I assume the song is transatlanticism, but it has been. The line is, we could travel just by folding a map. Maybe that's your inspiration for today. A little under 2 minutes left. Finding this incredibly hard. I am sorry to everyone who is also finding this incredibly hard. but there's only 7 seconds left. It was a rough 5 minutes for me. I hope that you were able to find. As always, thank you so much for being here. See you Thursday.